So, in case anybody's wondering why I'm wearing the same clothes as my what's in my bag video, it's because it's the same day! Yeah! And I was originally going to record my Facebook Q&A video, but then everything went to pot and I couldn't find it. I tried googling it, I tried searching for it on my Facebook page and it just disappeared and I couldn't find it anywhere, and I was really annoyed because there's so many questions on it as well, and a lot of them had like thumbs up from other people and blah-de-da. So then I started playing with my makeup and kind of gave myself a little bit more of a smoky eye, and then everybody should go and thank Alexandra Sigala because she found it. I started a new post on my page because I was like, oh, everyone's gonna have to ask me questions again and blah-de-da-de-da. And then she was like, I found it! And I was like, I love you, marry me. You can thank her if your questions get answered in this video because I almost had to restart this whole thing again, so yeah. And I purposely left it up for longer this time because I wanted people to get the chance to ask more questions. Normally I'll write a status and I'll give people around 2 hours to ask me questions and then I'll film the video that night, but I kind of got a bit ahead of myself. Now, thanks to Alexandra, I can actually answer more of the questions that have been there since the beginning of March. I felt a little bit too close to the camera, so I'm far away again. I hope you guys don't mind. I don't know if it's Neve Moran or Niam Moran. Neve is one of those names which I always mispronounce, so I don't know if that's your name or not. I am terrible with names, just letting you all know in advance. She asks in capital letters, do you like My Chemical Romance? Straight away I'm gonna let you guys know that I'm not a fan of the Black Parade album, like, at all. I'm more of a older My Chemical Romance fan. So think back to the album previous to 3 Cheers for Sweet Revenge and the album 3 Cheers for Sweet Revenge. Now, I'd say that was probably my favourite album, and I really dug the one before it as well. Digged, whatever. I'd say that my favourite My Chemical Romance songs were probably The Ghost of You, Give 'Em Hell Kid, To the End, You Know What They Do to Guys Like Us in Prison, Cemetery Drive, I Never Told You What I Do for a Living. I'd say that even though that had I'm Not Okay on it, which was like the most common like My Chemical Romance song for a really long time, that's the album that I really like the most. Like, I'm really not that keen on any of the other albums, bar the one previous to that which I really like, but I can never remember any of the songs off it. So yeah, I hope that answers your question. So I'm not really a fan of the newer stuff, the newer albums. I kind of fell out of love with My Chemical Romance after the 3 Cheers for Sweet Revenge album. I did get to see them live though when they toured that album. I've seen them live twice. I saw them tour previously to that album being released and for the 3 Cheers for Sweet Revenge tour. Lisa Duffy asked what the turquoise on my hair is, and I'm going to answer this question because a lot of people have asked the same question, even though I've mentioned it a few times. It's Directions Turquoise. Last time I put turquoise on my head just like to see what it would look like. It was quite dark in the beginning. I wanted it to be a little bit lighter but still dark in pigment. So I mixed the tiniest bit of conditioner with it this time, and I also added spring green underneath. Hair dye related questions. There you go. I'm gonna give up with last names now because a lot of these I can't pronounce and I don't want to insult anybody. So yeah, Shannon asked, will you be keeping your hair colour you have now for a while, or do you plan to go a different colour anytime soon? By the way, your videos rock. You're awesome. You rock. Thank you. My original plan was to go back to being brunette, and I was going to keep blue hair, turquoise hair or whatever for a while because it was the one colour I'd never dyed my hair before, and then I was just going to go back to brunette, like, you know, just before the baby's born. But I've grown quite attached to my hair now, and it's kind of like, and I kind of want to see what the baby's reaction would be, because babies are just like, whoa, when it comes to my hair. Like, all of my siblings were constantly shocked when they would see my hair, so it'd be really funny, like, you know, if my own daughter like got used to me having bright hair or whatever. I don't know why, is that like mean? I kind of just want to see her reaction. Like, I'm your mama and I have rainbow hair. I might go back to brunette before the baby's born, depending on how I feel around that time, but I think that I'll probably keep bright hair until she's born, and then, you know, depending on how much time I've got, like, you know, I only really dye my hair I think once every 2 months anyway. I try my best not to dye my hair a lot anyway, so I think that I could probably keep up with having bright hair while I've got around, obviously, but at the same time, I'm really indecisive. I feel like I should go back to brunette, but at the same time, like I said, I'm attached. So let's just see what happens. Eventually I am going to go back to being brunette because I can just see that in the future happening. I am going to go back to brunette, I just don't know when. Amy asked, any plans to get your own home with Niall soon? Yes, we are looking for somewhere to rent. We've been looking for somewhere to rent for a while now. It's not going very well, but we do have a house viewing on Saturday, so fingers crossed. If we're still here when the baby comes, then we may stay here for a month and then move, you know, like, or maybe a month or 2, because it may be easier that way. I don't think that it would be a good idea to like move with a newborn baby. It would be better to like wait a month or two, but it would be better if we could move before she's born. So we just have to see what happens. A lot of people have asked this question. Holly asked, you may have already said, but any ideas for baby names? Me and Niall had names picked out for a very long time. We knew exactly what we wanted to call her if she was a girl, which she is, and we knew exactly what we wanted to call her if she was a boy. We've got a solid name now though. We know exactly what her name is going to be. I'll be revealing that really soon. I will tell you guys that her middle name is Yaya's name, but I'm not going to tell you the first name just yet. I think I might make a separate video because I want to talk about why I'm calling her the name that I've chosen, because it's a name that really sticks out to me. It has a very strong meaning and it's something that I always wanted to call my daughter, and it specifically fits even more so because she's a fighter. So in my eyes, you know, she really suits this name and it's meant to be, and me and Niall have been calling her by her name while she's in my tummy, so maybe she'll recognise her name when she's born and things like that. But yeah, we'll reveal it soon, I promise. Not too long to wait now, so stay tuned. Hey Paul, are you afraid of the pain that you're going to go through when you are going to have your baby? Childbirth is my biggest fear. I've mentioned that in a previous video of mine. It's really weird because ever since being pregnant I've kind of gotten used to the idea that now she's in there, she's going to have to come out eventually, isn't she? And the stronger that her kicks get, the bigger that she grows, you know, ever since going to our 4D scan and seeing her in there. And I don't know, I'm not so scared about the pain now, even though I am a bit anxious about it. I just kind of know that she's going to have to come out, it's going to hurt. You don't know how your birth is going to pan out, but I'd say that I'm nervous and feeling a little bit anxious about it, but I'm not as scared as I was before I got pregnant, if that makes any sense, because I know that she has to come out. So in my eyes, fuck what happens to me, as long as she gets out in one piece, that's all I care about, to be honest. So I'd say I'm more anxious and nervous about her safety than my own, which is a really weird thing to say, because the idea of my vagina being stretched open and ouch, possible rip, ouch, recovery, ouch, all of it, ouch, it's kind of making me squirm, but at the same time, she's my priority and all I'll be thinking about during labour is her, to be honest. And I'm not going to scream because I can't understand why women scream, because you're wasting all your energy up here and you need to be using it down there. Deirdre asked, are you excited to become a mum? I'm excited and nervous. It's just kind of terrifying in a way, but at the same time, I'd definitely say that I'm excited. I'm very excited to be able to give her all of the emotional support that she requires, you know, all of her needs, the needs that I felt were never met by my own parents for me. I know that I'm capable of giving to her. So I'd say that I'm excited to be there for someone and to be someone's loving mama and stuff like that. But at the same time, it's kind of really weird and surreal, but very real, because I can feel her moving around all of the time now and I know that she's there and it's just kind of like, whoa, this is crazy. But yeah, I'd say I'm definitely excited. April asked, if you were to have a boy, what would you call it? I'll be honest with you guys, exactly what I was going to call him if she was a boy. If we had a boy, we were going to call him Julian Alexander, and I love that name and I'm still determined to use that name. You know, if we ever have a boy in the future or whatever, if I ever have any more kids, I kind of can't imagine myself with more than one child. I'd say 2 at the very most, and even then I think that it'll be a while before I squeeze another one out, even though I've not squeezed this one out yet. But yeah, Julian Alexander was what we were going to call him. Julian after Julian Casablancas from The Strokes, and Alexander is Niall's middle name. I liked that a lot. Niall really liked Xavier, which is what he was going to be called originally. But I can't spell Xavier very well, so I wasn't very keen, even though it sounds really awesome, doesn't it? Like, Xavier Alexander. It sounds kind of like a pro wrestler when you think about it. Rachel asked, what are your thoughts on self-harm? A lot of people are doing it that I'm close to. Any advice? I love your videos. Thank you so much. And, oh, I could make a whole video on self-harm as someone that used to self-harm. I would say that it's a very vicious cycle. I don't want to say too much on the subject because I could make a whole video on it, but I'd say that it's not worth it. And the worst thing about it is when you are a self-harmer, it's like an addiction. It's an addiction to harming yourself more so than like making a scar or like, you know, the pain. It's the idea of punishing yourself. It's a mental problem more so than a physical addiction, but it's kind of like a bit of both. It all really depends. It's a very complicated one to talk about and I don't really want to touch upon it too much in this video because it's a Q&A. I'm trying to like fit as many questions in as possible, but I'd say that my advice when it comes to self-harm would be, if there's someone you care about that is self-harming, you know, be there for them, you know, be an ear for them to listen to, you know, be very delicate with them. Don't just like make fun of their scars or just tell them to stop or that they're being an idiot, you know, or be very careful, I would say. For me, self-harm was a very private thing. That's why I have no scars on my arms. My favourite place to self-harm was my thighs because I could hide it, and I self-harmed in various other ways too. It's such a sensitive subject, but I would just say that all you can really do is be there for them, and if the self-harm gets out of control, then you need to do something about it, you know, you need to get your friend help, basically. Sorry, my battery died, so I started importing some footage into my laptop and that's why it's making a very angry noise. One of the most important things that I can say off the top of my head, because this is a very, very broad topic and I can't narrow it down very well, I don't even know why I'm trying to even answer it in this video. I would say that your friend needs to commit to the idea of stopping self-harm. You can't force her or him to do so. You have to do it yourself, and that's coming from someone that used to self-harm. When I self-harmed, nobody knew about it because it was such a private thing to me. I didn't walk around telling anybody. It was very secretive. What made me want to stop was the fact that I knew that what I was doing was really pointless, because the whole thing was just a vicious cycle and it wasn't really getting me anywhere, and if anything it was just encouraging me more in the idea of it would be better to just, you know, eliminate myself from the planet in one go rather than causing myself so much pain. So I'd just say that all you can really do is be there for this person, watch them very carefully, you know, just be there for them. The best thing you can do for someone who self-harms, be there for them. Don't try and shout at them to stop, don't make them feel worse about themselves or what they're doing. Just encourage them to stop. You're gonna have to find a way in which to deal with that specific person because we're all so different and we work in different ways. But good luck, and I really hope that your friend stops doing that soon because it is just a vicious cycle, and I'm so glad that I haven't self-harmed since I was a teenager. Moving on to a different question. Joanna asked, will you be breastfeeding? If so, if the baby decides not to latch on right away, will you keep trying and stay with it, or will you just opt for formula straight away? I'll definitely keep trying. It all just depends on whether or not baby is getting enough to sustain her appetite and blah-de-da-da. A lot of different things play into effect, so it all really does depend on her, but I'm very determined to try my best. Veronica asked, in one of your older videos you listed some of your fears. One was having something wrong with your body and needing surgery, another was giving birth. Now that you've gone through major surgery and are pregnant, does giving birth still seem scary? I'm terrified of childbirth myself and wondered if something just changes in your mind while being pregnant that makes it seem less awful, bracket, other than finally being able to hold your child. So this is kind of similar to the question that Paul, you know, raised, which I kind of already answered, but I'd say that a few different things would be the fact that I was so scared of having an operation, and then I had to have an operation. It was life or death, basically. I had no choice. That was something that I had to do. And because it was something that I had to do, it was kind of like I found my balls, I grabbed them, and I just knew it was something I had to do. It wasn't pleasant. I wouldn't want to go through it again, but at the same time, you do what you've got to do to survive. And I can kind of apply that same thing to the whole idea of childbirth. Like, something just changes inside of you. Your priority just becomes your child and not you, and it's the weirdest thing ever. Michaela asked, your Instagram makes me want Yorkshire puddings. Will you make me Yorkshire puddings? I don't know where you live. If you live like in America or China or something and I make you Yorkshire puddings and send them to you in the post, they may not get there edible or tasty. So I can't make you Yorkshire puddings, but I wish that I could. Sammy Whammy asked, when is your due date? Sammy Whammy. Sammy Whammy, sorry. I recognise your name though because I know that you tweet me a lot on Twitter, so hi! And my due date is the 28th of June. Moni asked, how has your new pillow helped you while sleeping? It's not helped at all, it's pile of wank and I hate it. Yeah. Jennifer asked, if you could decide the profession for your daughter, what would it be and why? A job that would financially sustain her so she didn't have to worry too much about money and she could enjoy her life. I don't really care what it is. I'll be proud of her, whatever she chooses to achieve in life. She can be whatever the hell she wants to be. As long as she doesn't turn out to be a murderer or something really horrible, and she's a good person and she's determined to succeed in what she chooses, then I'm quite happy, to be honest. and that'll be my job well done. I really couldn't choose a profession off the top of my head. Kim asked, are you planning on coming back to America once you get settled with the baby in a few years or so? Definitely. I'd really like to go to Disneyland, because I went to Disneyland when I was 4 and I loved it, but I kind of want to go back sooner because my friend is getting married. My friend is getting married, not this year, but next year. So it would be really, really cool if we could all go, you know, and go to her wedding, because I'd really like to see her wedding. You know, it's a very special time in your life, isn't it, when you get married? I'd really like to be there because she's a really lovely, lovely, lovely person. But if we can't make it, then we can't make it. It all just depends on funds, baby, how she is, all of these other things. But I'd really like to go back sooner rather than later, but if it takes a few years, it takes a few years. Margarita, I think that's your name. That's a cool name. I want to be named after an alcoholic beverage. I don't know what you were named after, really. I hope that doesn't insult you. Anyway, she asked, if you could go back in time to a certain period of life for a couple of days, what period would you go back to and why? As in like my life, or as in a different life? I'd say if it was a different life entirely, then I'd love to like live through the 70s and the 80s. So bad. So bad, and like the early 90s and not be a baby would be so cool. I would have loved to have gone out and like rocked in the 80s and like, you know, in the 70s punk scene and things like that. And just like, a lot of my style is influenced by like the 70s and the 80s and, you know, the 90s. Mostly the 80s and the 70s though. Like, do you know what, can I just go back to like every really famous era that like, you know, ever existed and just kind of taste a little bit of every little time pie, if that makes sense? That would be so awesome. But mostly if I could go back to any time, it would be the 70s and the 80s. But it would be really cool to like early 90s to experience that and not be a child. But mostly 70s and 80s, and for sure in my lifetime, if I could go back to any time, it would be when I was a kid and I had no worries in the world. But way before like the big worries started, I always had a very worried childhood. Without going into too much detail, I'd like to go back to when my parents were still together and before all of the very complicated things happened, and before I started to become more aware of my surroundings. I'd like to go back to, you know, being sat in a convertible like with my dad and my mum listening to Bryan Adams and AC/DC and stuff, and just feeling whole. I felt whole and loved for like a very short time in my childhood, and it was around about that time where I wasn't really as aware of what was going on. Like, you know, my parents still argued and there was a lot of like dark elements to it, but I always kind of forgot about them and didn't focus on them as much. And the older I got, the more aware I got and the shitter everything became. And it's very complicated, but that would be nice to go back to, just to kind of be in that happy little bubble that soon got popped. Scarlett asked, if there was one value that you could be certain to pass on to your child, what would it be and why? It would definitely be honesty, because I think that honesty is one of the most important things that you can teach your child. I also think respect is very important. It's very sad for me, like, you know, to witness all of these children around me and all of these people that I come into contact with that just lack the common decency to be respectful to like their elders or people around them. I think that they're two very, very important things. Another one that Lisa asked was, what's your favourite Smiths song? That's really, really, really hard, but off the top of my head it would be Big Mouth Strikes Again, because I love that song. Also, Shannon asked, what do you think of Arctic Monkeys' newest album, AM, and what's your favourite song from it? This is difficult. This is very difficult. It's definitely one of my favourite Arctic Monkeys albums, by far. I went to see them tour and they played it and it was amazing and I loved it, and I loved that album so much. When it came out, it was all I listened to. I was just listening to AM on repeat over and over and over and over again. Favourite ones would be Fireside, Knee Socks, I Wanna Be Yours. I really like One for the Road as well. So I've been going on with myself for way too long now, and this is probably going to be a really long Q&A video, but I think I answered the majority of the questions. Keep your eye out on my Facebook page if you want to ask me more questions. Bye!